Hello and a very warm welcome. My name's David Roth from WPP, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to Follow the Sun, 24 hours of broadcasting right across the world to celebrate the launch of the WPP BAV Best Country Study for 2021, done in conjunction with US News and the Wharton Business School. It's a pleasure to have you join us for this section. Of course, this broadcast is going to be right across the world. We're starting in Australia and New Zealand, and we'll be ending at the end of the 24-hour period in the USA. Well, we've got an absolutely packed broadcast today, and I'd like to start off by introducing Mike Sussman from BAV. Mike has been the brainchild behind the Best Country Studies for many years, and there's nobody better to put the Best Country Study into context. Over to you, Mike.
Thank you, David. We're really excited about the launch of the 2021 Best Countries study. It's the most comprehensive study of the power of nation brands. We've been doing this for 6 years, covering countries that represent 95% of the global GDP and about 75% of the world's population. So an amazing coverage. This year, we're looking at 78 countries. We spoke to over 17,000 business decision makers, citizens, and elites around the world. And we've ranked countries on a battery of metrics, including 26 key rankings that we'll talk about throughout this report and throughout the app. One thing we've seen over time is the shifting impact of soft power. It's becoming more and more important to driving the power of a country, while hard power, like banks and tanks, as we call it, the more traditional power, is becoming less impactful on the success of a nation. When we think about the power of a nation, we think about 10 key dimensions, and you can look at each of these ranks and how a country does on these things, from entrepreneurship to cultural influence to quality of life. We've introduced 2 new ones that are becoming more and more important today in these changing dynamics of culture. One of those is how purposeful, how socially purposeful is a nation. And the second is how agile is a nation, how responsive it is to things, particularly during a COVID era. And both of those dimensions are extremely important in driving the GDP and the success of a nation. Agile nations are seen as 3 times more likely to be a better job market. They're rated 3.2 times more likely as being economically influential. They are more connected to the rest of the world. So agile nations are doing something to resonate with people globally. Really important to mention, and it's the biggest driver now of GDP. And that's something that the nations need to be more and more of today. So when you think about agility, the top nations around the world this year are USA, number 1 in terms of being an agile country, followed by Australia, and in 3rd place is Canada. We continue to see the rising power of purpose, not just for brands, but also for nations. In fact, purposeful nations are 57% more likely to be considered for tourism, 55% more likely to be considered as a place to do business. So it's important to be seen as a purposeful and socially responsible country. Number 1 on this purposeful dimension is Canada, followed by Denmark, and in 3rd place is New Zealand out of 78. So pretty impressive, pretty strong dimensions, very important. We also see the power and impact of brands that resonate from countries. In fact, 79.5% of citizens say that consumer brands play an important role in defining a country's culture. So there's a strong relationship between the brands and the nation. We also see that 78.6% of citizens say that the country a product is made in impacts their preference for a brand. So you can see that interplay between brand and country and how important it is today. And we started measuring the power of what does it mean to be made in a specific country. What does made in America mean, and made in China? And we can rank the power of these nations in terms of their exports. So, for instance, Germany ranks number 1 in terms of the country you'd want to buy an automobile from. They also dominate on pharmaceuticals and beer. So you can see a little bit of a balanced power of that nation. Italy is number 1 on fashion. So that's the top brand for when you're thinking about buying fashion brands. France owns cosmetics. In terms of the best countries for real estate, Canada ranks number 1, followed by the United States and then France. So overall, again, you can see how the building blocks of a nation affect its overall ranking. And we're excited to share some more details with you. Back to you, David.
Well, now it's time to get an overview of the key insights from the 2021 study on a global perspective. And who better to do that for us than Professor David Ribstein from Wharton University. Professor Ribstein has been our partner in this study since it started, and his unique understanding and unique perspective of countries, of brands, and what's driving GDP growth is unrivaled. So let's hear from David now.
Hello, I'm Dave Reibstein. I'm a marketing professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. I've been involved with the Best Country Study since its inception. This year has been a different year. It's been a transformational year. There's been many things that have affected how we view countries and how we live our particular lives. First and foremost, obviously, we've had to deal with the COVID-19 and the tragic loss of millions of lives all around the world. Accompanying this has been the huge impact on economies of various different countries, leading to an overall global recession. Some countries have handled the pandemic well, such as South Korea and Taiwan and several others, whereas other countries have not handled it nearly as well. Accompanying this pandemic has been the subsequent vaccine distribution. And this has required acquisition of vaccines as well as some form of equitable distribution of those. Perhaps Israel has been the country that has done the best at it. There are others that are catching up, but there are other countries that are still struggling today with trying to manage the vaccine distribution. A third major thing that's been happening this year has been the Black Lives movement that originated in the United States and has found it in various other countries all around the world. Climate impact has been a major event that's happened in various different countries. Perhaps the most notable are the brush fires that happened in Australia. We've seen other events, such as the explosions that happened in the Beirut port, killing millions of lives. And of course, we could not ignore Brexit and the impact that's had on the British economy, as well as the economies of Europe. Many, many events have made this year an exceptional year. And it's part of what it is that we've all had to adjust to. Perhaps the greatest impact, of course, has been the pandemic. And what we have witnessed as individuals is we see that how we buy and where we shop, that's changed. How we work, many of us working from home, some of us not having jobs. So there's been a dramatic impact for individuals, where we eat and how we interact with family and friends, dramatically affected, and we've had to adapt. Businesses have had to adapt as well. And what they have had to do is how they connect with their customers has changed. Meetings have changed. The ability to have trade shows dramatically affected. The whole supply chain has been disrupted. And certain industries, such as the hospitality industries or the airline industry, have been dramatically affected, with sporting events being canceled throughout the world. So many, many industries have suffered as a result. And when I've talked to business leaders, almost inevitably, what it is that they tell me is they've needed to be agile. And it sort of is the buzzword that I hear from companies. But that's not restricted to just individuals and companies. Countries have had to adapt as well. And what it is that we have seen is we see, obviously, trying to get the healthcare systems up to speed and handling with this medical crisis that we've got. And getting medical supplies to the hospitals and to individuals has also been an issue. But trying to cope with the unemployment levels and trying to deal with that and supporting the local governments has been a major issue for countries all around the world. And what countries have had to do they've had to adapt as well. Well, we too at the Best Country Study have had to go through our own adaptations. We've added 13 new attributes that we use for evaluating countries, and we have taken one of the previous dimensions, that of citizenship, and we have morphed it into a dimension that we call social purpose. And what is social purpose? It has many of the dimensions that we had in citizenship, but it also includes dimensions such as human rights and racial equality and social justice and climate concern, that have all been attributes that now feed into the social purpose dimension. And we've added a new dimension. And this new dimension, this new overall factor is one of course, agility. And what is it that we have feeding into agility? Our perceptions of countries in terms of their adaptability and in terms of responsiveness and how progressive they are and how modern they happen to be and how dynamic they are, all feed into this agility dimension. So with that said, let's take a look at the latest rankings that we have.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone around the globe. The young generation, also known as the now generation, they are the dominant voice of tomorrow. And they are also our future market evolution. But what makes them tick? Why they are so unique? What is their definition of living a good life? Can we learn their expectations and behaviors? Is our way of communicating in sync with them? Where do they talk to each other? And how can we reach them? Also, has technology actually changed the course of storytelling? Or storytelling has just become more meaningful into their influence? As an initiative of our first year anniversary of Asian Case Strategies Indonesia, we decided to go deep dive, trying to comprehend this amazing generation. And we found an ecosystem that's very exciting, creating more opportunities for us to communicate and form relationship with them. So we present you the youth equation.
I use Instagram mainly to keep up with my friends in real life, as well as several content creators that I follow on there. I use Twitter to keep up with social issues that are happening in the world currently, as well as several news happening either near me or somewhere else. I use Line mainly to talk with almost all of my friends, as well as several classmates that are on there and some teachers. For WhatsApp, I use WhatsApp almost only for family purposes, as well as talking to some teachers who use the app. And lastly, I use Discord only to talk with online friends that I've met in the past.
How would I like brands to behave in their content creation? I would like brands to not put too much effort to stay relevant and follow the trends. Instead, brands should be aware on what changes that are happening and stay up to date, and also support the cause as much as they can. I would like brands to produce content that are raw and what their audience can relate to.
So basketball and video games has a big impact on my life. I watch a lot of video games on YouTube, and I also watch basketball content to improve my basketball skills. I would simply use any platform I find, but I mainly use YouTube. I also use Instagram as a getaway, and meme accounts are some of the most popular on Instagram. So I use Instagram to find these memes and these funny videos and share them with my friends.
I do trust more towards the micro-influencers just because they start gradually from a small following, and because of that we know their personality and values well, and then they create a loyal fan base. But for the big influencers, I'd rather them be more open and honest and communicative about their process and the pros and cons, rather than them being too polished or too sugar-coated.
One unique trait that best defines this youngest working generation is their digital fluency. Born as a true digital native, the young have forged their own understanding of the world around them, as well as actively shaping it. As the oldest of the Gen Z steps into the beginning adulthood and starts spending, brands are starting to engage them by cluttering the medium where these young generations populate in hopes to gain their favors. So through their digital fluency and access to webs of information, they become the trickiest group to convince yet. So let's take on a journey through the heart of these new generation to better understand the world through their eyes and minds. As a first phase, we connected with over 500 young Indonesians across the nation in partnership with Telkomsel. And now we want to share our findings of their balancing the tradition of Indonesia and becoming a global citizen while preserving the culture they were raised from. We hope this first edition will allow brands to understand this new playground with new rules of engagement and how storytelling can still be the main tool in reaching out to them. Enjoy!
Hai everyone. 25 tahun Telkomsel sudah berdiri di Indonesia dan tahun ini menginjak ke 26 tahun kita harus berhadapan dengan berbagai macam generasi. Generasi Z itu menjadi salah satu challenge bagi kita dan saya yakin itu pun menjadi challenge di industri manapun. Bagaimana kita atau Telkomsel meng-create sebuah produk atau layanan yang relevan bagi mereka. Jawaban kami adalah menjawab challenge tersebut adalah kita persembahkan produk kami yang bernama Bayu. Kalau kita bicara ke publik gitu ya, tahu nggak sih produk Bayu ke masyarakat pada umum? Mungkin banyak orang yang Bayu apa ya gitu. Apakah itu jadi sebuah kegagalan bagi Telkomsel? Enggak. Karena memang produk Bayu itu tidak ada di outlet. Produk Bayu itu tidak ada di conventional market. Produk Bayu itu ada di mana generasi Z tadi berada, yaitu dunia maya, internet. Kami pun dibantu dan dikawal oleh partner strategi kita, yaitu Hill Knowlton Strategi Indonesia, di mana daily kita selalu berdiskusi, kita selalu berembuk, kita bertukar pikiran dari konsep hingga eksekusi. Terima kasih sekali lagi, salam sukses awesome buat kalian semua, teman-teman dari Hill Knowlton Strategi Indonesia. Sarangi.
Hi, I'm Dinda, and after I read the white paper, I think my thoughts about the now generation is valid. They are outspoken, very outspoken, and they're not afraid to talk about the social issues that they are concerned with on their social media. So in order to stay relevant with them, I try to always talk about the issues that I'm concerned with. To me, those are body shaming and diversities, by making content in their most comfortable channel, which is for now is TikTok. And the content should be short, fast, but powerful enough to stop them from scrolling. So it shouldn't be something heavy, but it should be light, but still aesthetically pleasing.
In our findings while developing this thought piece, we discovered there is a large gap between generations in communication and storytelling. Those large gaps are represented in the 6 chapters that you just previously seen in the video. The older generation lives in comfort built over years, while the young created their own communication space and responds to storytelling that resonates with their life's purpose and not so much on what the older generation wants them to do. Although this is not something new, but what makes it different now is how digital and social media and now COVID created a lot of different avenues and space and platforms for them to bond and evolve. The gap is getting wider and wider, and while the older, more experienced adults seek a safer and comfortable world, the young is breaking down the rules, tap into different channels of communication and places to form bonds with those that is relevant to them, can understand them, and share the same cause and direction. A report allows you to understand this behavior and showcase opportunities for new way of storytelling and assist those looking for a better connection with what I call the tomorrow's consumer. Thank you. All right, thank you. Good job, everyone. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much indeed. To celebrate this very special launch, we've created a very special app. It's a virtual reality experience where you can literally visit every single country that's featured in the 2021 study. Well, you can get it on your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, your mobile phone. All you need to do is just download it from the URL that's on the screen here. Enjoy, explore. It's full of interest and insights, and we'll be refreshing the content frequently over the course of the next few months. So please do go back frequently. Earlier, I talked about the significance of countries being seen as brands. This is being increasingly realised right across the world, not just by business leaders, but by governments at the most senior of levels. I caught up with the Prime Minister of the Netherlands and asked him how important he believes country brands are. Mr. Prime Minister, what contribution do you think that retailing makes to the economy and society in general?
So many. I mean, it is the biggest employer in the Netherlands. 900,000 people are somehow connected to the retail sector, so it is huge in its economic impact. That means that many people, in many cases young people, start their working life experiences in the retail sector. It is also a place where you can learn how to be more entrepreneurial and how to start your own business. It is a sector in our economy which is very much focused on innovation and disruptive innovation. It is very much connected to the modern economy, to the internet, to online shopping. So there are so many positives. And it's also a place where people come together. It's also a sort of community place. In some of the stores, people drink a cup of coffee, meet friends and then buy some stuff. So it has many, many impacts on society.
Mr. Prime Minister, you had a fantastic career at Unilever. You obviously know brands very well. Do you think country brands are as important as product brands?
Oh, they're crucial. And what I found in this job is that the brand of Amsterdam, the brand of the Netherlands, the brand of Eindhoven, or the whole commercial area around cities like Zwolle and Amersfoort are crucial for our international standing. And the fact that you can bike to school as a child, that it's relatively safe here, that there are so many possibilities when you like sports or culture. And I really learned to brand that much more than we did already.
One last question, Mr. Prime Minister. What advice would you give retailers today who are under a lot of pressure, under a lot of stress? Everything's changing very fast.
Yeah, but still, at the same time, you are in a fascinating sector. So enjoy what you are doing. We live only once. This is the real thing. This is not the. So you have to make the best of it. And there are so many opportunities for good salespeople, for good businessmen and women, to make use of all those opportunities which are out there. And do realize that you play a very important part in societies. You are really part of society.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, I can't believe it. We've come to the end of our broadcast. We're almost out of time. I'd like to thank everybody who participated in today's broadcast. And just to remind you again, please do download the app and enjoy going virtually into every single one of our countries in this year's 2021 Best Countries Study. So from me, David Roth, thank you very much indeed. And Mike, thank you very much indeed as well.
My pleasure. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thank you.
Well, have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. We really appreciate it.
you.